The land of the rising sun comes to La République as France welcomes a very old friend, Japan, for a showcase of the best of Japanese art, architecture, performance and cinema to celebrate 160 years of diplomatic ties between the two countries. Some of the highlights of that cultural season are coming up in the show. We're starting with an artist whose work exudes the minimalism, precision and attention to detail so often associated with the Japanese aesthetic. Hiroshi Sugimoto is known for his haunting imagery, midnight seascapes, empty theatres and uncannily lifelike dioramas, all photographed in black and white with a traditional large format camera. He's now brought his unique perspective to a very prestigious setting, the Palace of Versailles here in France. I went along to find out more. Monarchs, politicians and even a certain military hero at one time or another, they were all invited here to the Palace of Versailles. Today the guest of honour is an artist, Japanese photographer Hiroshi Sugimoto, who's brought these ghostly visitors back to life in a series of portraits and created installations which explore the theme of revolution here at the former home of France's royal family. Renowned for his monochrome images, Sugimoto's photographs of waxworks are at the heart of this show. You're presenting a series of portraits here in Versailles which depict key figures from history.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about these people and their links to this very regal setting?
I've been working 24 years photographing the Madame Tussauds wax figures, including the Marie Antoinette, and then I found Louis XIV's wax figures. Everybody was casted from their face by Madame Tussauds. Actually, Madame Tussauds is famous in the London show, but she was French, who used to live here as a tutor of Louis XVI's youngest sister. So I decided to bring all the people who has a record of visiting Versailles to be reunited here. It's like a ghost party.
Most of these figures are no longer with us. You've said that before, that photography is like a time machine.
Yes.
What do these portraits tell us about the very nature of time?
Unfortunately, even Napoleon died 10 years before the invention of photography. So the history has been recorded by painting before the invention of photography. People tend to believe photography, and then I'm photographing just the surface of the wax, but people have their own imagination to make it believable. That's my idea of my art, to make people think what is real, what is not real, what is existing real. Reality issues.
Sugimoto's passion for what it is that constitutes history is not the singularity of any one or other of these characters you see here. All of these people are photographed with no judgment whatsoever. We don't know if one is a dictator, if the other's a seducer, a wonderful person, a saint. None of that matters. What's important is that all of us are a continuation of each other, like Russian dolls, and our existences are not as different as they might seem.
Photography may be his usual field for optical experimentation, but Sugimoto's also involved in choreography and architecture, despite no formal training in those disciplines. A structural view of the world that he's brought to these famously landscaped gardens in the form of a glass tea house.
This is a very, very unique chance to present a Japanese sense of space, to design the garden. Everything is so symmetrical here in Versailles, so grand. But my piece is such a small, only 2 tatami size for the 2 guests and 1 tea master use only. Everything is symmetrical, but I place my glass tea house exactly in the center. But the bridge to get in the tea house is slightly off, maybe 60 centimeters off. So this is only off-centered design among everywhere in Versailles.
This year, Japan and France celebrate 160 years of diplomatic friendship. How would you describe the relationship between the two countries?
The two countries so alike. Both countries pay so much attention to the art and culture and also food. I am so glad that I am chosen as an artist to represent the friendship of French and Japan.
Using a variety of surfaces, from hand-processed photography to video, sculpture and architecture, Hiroshi Sugimoto brings his own artistic revolution here to Versailles and prompts visitors to think about time, history and our place in it. We're moving now to another Japanese visionary who also dabbles in architecture, to put it mildly. Tadao Ando is a superstar architect in his home country, but he's less well known in Europe. The work of the Pritzker Prize-winning designer is now the subject of an exhibition at the Pompidou Centre. Augusto Lunardi and Nick Rushworth went to take a closer look.
77-year-old Tadao Ando is a Zen master of architecture. He attended the opening of the retrospective of his life's work at the Pompidou Centre and drew on the walls, enthralling museum-goers. His work to transform the old Paris Commodities Exchange building into an art museum is ongoing. It's exactly the kind of challenge he relishes.
Just look at this model of the Commodities Exchange building. Building a new interior within a structure that's more than 150 years old is a real challenge. Seeing the old structure as a work site for another structure poses real difficulties.
It will be a showcase for modern art from autumn 2019 onwards. The Pompidou retrospective is entitled Tadao Ando, The Challenge. It looks at 50 of his major projects. Common features include the use of smooth concrete and simple geometric volumes. Born in Osaka, he started adult life as a boxer but got the architecture bug during the construction of his own home. Self-taught, he established his design studio in 1968.
This exhibition shows people just how much I wanted to try new things and create structures that made a mark on people. I want to have an impact on their culture. It's not about the size of a building. I feel I can find new challenges in small and large structures and want to continue creating.
His philosophy is that architecture should reflect the joy of life.
Tadao Ando's architecture is alive. There is a message for the future. It is the architecture of life. We bring it to life by walking into it and interacting with the light, water. The architecture is something you live, and within it is a universal message, which is what makes Tadao Ando so great.
Among the most extraordinary of his 250 projects in a 5-decade career, this, the Hill of the Buddha in Sapporo in northern Japan. And this is Tadao Ando's latest work, the Wrightwood Art Space in Chicago, which has just opened.
We're staying with innovation and craftsmanship, but on a somewhat smaller scale this time. The Museum of Decorative Arts has brought together 150 years' worth of Japanese design, a rich and diverse selection of objects which demonstrate how the country's ergonomic approach inspired others. 1,500 examples of textiles, ceramics and graphic design which blend form, function and, of course, beauty. Curator Beatrice Kett worked on the show with specialists from Japan. She told us about how they approached the major themes of the exhibition and picked out the contemporary pieces which captured her imagination.
First we took the image, the motif, and then we go deeper and deeper in the Japanese world and of objects, and then discover the technique of lacquer, the technique of ceramics, some technique of ceramic that we didn't know how to do in France and in Europe more widely. So their object that they mastered originally, tea box, object very simple for the kitchen utensils, wooden buckets, basket, bamboo shape, textile. They are very simple objects but beautifully done.
We're wrapping up the show with a look back at a century of Japanese cinema. After a series of screenings at the Cinémathèque, the retrospective continues at the Japanese Cultural Centre here in Paris, and they're focusing on the classics. Who better to represent that golden age of filmmaking than Yasujiro Ozu? We'll leave you with a selection of his films. Do remember to check out our website, and you can also keep up with Encore on social media too. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Yo